Hello and welcome back to the lab. Today on the bench we have an Alesis drum controller, the Nitro Max. This was brought to me because somebody knows I do a bit of board repair and asked if I would take a look at this. What's happening with this particular unit is the power button is not staying latched in like it's supposed to. So what I was told is when this unit is powered up, if you hold in the power button, it'll start up and it'll operate normally. It just won't latch like it's supposed to and stay on to be used. The owner got a second one, and the second one is doing the same thing. So we're going to take a look at that, see what's wrong with this switch, and go from there. All right, let's take some stuff apart, see if we can get into this thing. Self-tapping screws into plastic. Yep, still self-tapping. So self-tappers all around. And it's trying to separate. So it's trying to separate right there. There's where it's splitting. So, am I missing any screws? Nope. So we may be at pop clips. This is rubber. There may be some screws under there. There are. So the rubber has to come off, and there is 2 more screws hiding underneath. Sometimes disassembly is getting into this stuff. It's the hardest part of fixing it. And that should now just open up. All right, we have some plugs in there. It looks like a 2-board configuration. So we're going to pop. I'm not going to drop this. We're going to pop these plugs apart. That should let me separate the top from the bottom. Given that this is for a drum set, and this has latching plugs on it, which is kind of nice. They're also keyed and sized, so you can't put them in the wrong place. So we have a control board. Power switch is going to be up here in this corner. Let's get this board out and see what we see. Okay, screws are out and ready for removal. We pop this out ever so gently. What am I hooked on? There it goes. Nothing. All right. So here's our power switch. I do see a latching mechanism on the power switch. So let's take that power switch apart and see if we can't get that squared away. Okay, take the switch apart, make sure nothing springs and flies into the deep parts of the lab, never to be seen again. Wow, that is very broken. Okay, I got to go even further, so we got to pull that switch off the board. All right, well, here we are, and parts came in, and I get bit by the dumb stuff. Every once in a while it happens. Nobody's perfect, and as normal, like I've promised the patrons, if I hit record, it goes up on YouTube, even if it shows me I'm not perfect, because I'm not perfect, which is totally fine. We're back on this drum controller, and there was a question as to whether the switch was a locking switch or a momentary switch. And I have confirmed that it is a momentary switch. The momentary switch is correct, so it is a non-locking switch. And the drum controller was actually fine. There was nothing wrong with it. Okay, I got our drum controller powering up from the Rigol power supply, which will become very apparent soon, and we have the new locking switch put in. So if I push the power button, we get a display, everything boots up, and everything's working. However, if I let go of this power button, everything stays working. Okay, we're going to push this in again. Everything's still on, and we're going to let this go again. Oh, no, it locked, sorry. We're going to let this go again, and now the unit powers off. So, weird thing on this particular unit, and this is probably one of 2 devices that I've run in that actually uses a momentary switch for a power button. Most things don't. But this does need a momentary contact, so I do need to put that switch back together. That switch was working just fine. Was not a problem. We'll talk about it. I kind of went down a rabbit hole a little bit further than I should because I did see the locking mechanism, but I didn't see any of the mechanics that go with that locking mechanism. That's where we are. Zooming into what is normally the dish of shame, although this is these parts are working just fine. Here's the momentary switch, if nobody's seen one of these switches and what these things look like. The plastic plunger just moves these contacts between these 2 intersections, and that is how that switch functions. Here's the plastic plunger in question. Those contacts ride in the grooves right there, and as the plunger gets pushed in, they move back and forth. Up top, if I can get the light just right, we see this geometry in the top of the switch. Don't spill anything. I need to put this back together. Get a pointer. We see, let's see if I can get some light on it. There we go. We see this geometry in the top of the switch. This is actually the latching mechanism, except there's some pieces missing. There's supposed to be a small wire that comes in and rides in here around this geometry to hold the switch in, and then there's a spring that comes over top of it to keep it closed. And I was kind of curious as I was taking this apart, but I was biasing to what my client said. Here's one of the replacement switches I got, and you can see the armature and the spring and everything that actuates when the switch actually locks and closes, and that actually moves. So as I was looking at this, I was like, where are these 2 parts? Like, they should be rattling around inside the drum machine and things like that, and I was like, a little weird. But we moved forward with it and found out that through testing and observation that the switch is actually designed in circuit to be momentary. So these are the wrong parts, very fortunately. Right physical size, wrong physical function. I needed a double pole, double throw, non-latching switch, not a double pole, double throw, latching switch. So time for me to put a little bit of switch cleaner on here and put this all back together and get this switch up and running and this drum machine back and working. Old switch is out, new switch is in, we're working on it. I'm going to try to do this on camera so you guys can see the process. It's a very precariously balanced board, but I think we can do this. And we'll do soldering in glorious 4K for those that can take advantage of it. All right, you guys keep an eye out to make sure I didn't short anything. We do not want to join the fraternity of expensive sounds. All right, a little bit of 99% to clean off the flux. Polarities are correct. Power supply is on. We have a boot. And we have an off. So we have a repaired drum machine. Let me get this thing back together, and I will show you guys what the actual problem was. All right, here we go. Drum machine running off of, I'll put back together, and running off of my power supply. We're going to take a look at that, and I'm going to talk about what I think happened. So as we can see from the Rigol, I have it set to 9 volts at half an amp, and it's pulling about 200 milliamps out of the power supply, which is fairly respectable, but not altogether overly large or high. The weird part here is the plug pack that I was given with this unit and was told has been running this unit for a year or two was a 6-volt half-amp supply. So we actually had the wrong plug pack hooked up to this. Now, fortunately, it was low voltage, not high voltage, so it didn't burn up the drum controller, but it probably did starve it for power for a little bit. But I've been told it ran it for quite some time. So what I think's happening, or what I think happened, is, because everything is speculation at this point, and I'll never be able to definitively prove anything, is that plug pack, it was a cheap one, so it probably floated a little high on the voltage, because a plug pack should deliver 5.9, 5.8 volts at a full 500 milliamps. This wasn't drawing a considerable amount of current, less than half of what the pack could do. So the voltage on that pack may have floated up a little bit high. Well, that would have put some stress on that power supply due to the fact that it would pull on it very, very heavily, because if a unit needs, say, 2 watts of power, this was 1.79, I can get that wattage in either current or voltage, and if I undercurrent something, or if I undervoltage something, I'm going to draw heavy current because I'm going to try to make up the power difference by just pulling on it harder. This is why a lot of power supplies collapse when they just collapse out when they start getting a little bit weak, is because they can't deliver the power requirements. So current rises, voltage falls. That creates a cycle where current keeps going up, voltage keeps going down until the rail finally collapses and can't deliver anything, can't deliver enough power, which is what I think happened to that power supply. So it ran for quite some time, highly stressing out that plug pack, and eventually it became too much for the plug pack, and the plug pack kind of fell out. With that 6-volt plug pack, the backlight of the display would turn on, but the processor wouldn't actually start. We wouldn't get any lights on the display. It wouldn't do anything, as we saw earlier in the video. So that's kind of what I think happened to this thing. I'm going to let this run in some burn-in tests, and if anything else happens to this thing, you guys will know about it, because I'll flip the camera back on. But we'll see what happens after it runs for a while. All right, well, that's one use for a soft power button. It has an auto-off feature, so if it idles for too long, it'll just shut down, which is probably why that was set up that way. But I did talk to the customer, and we did confirm that there was an issue with the power supply, and I was provided the incorrect power supply. So in this case, this was what we call looking at an elephant with a microscope. But it is what it is. Thanks for swinging by the lab and taking a look at the repair of this, or the troubleshooting of this Alesis drum controller. If you like what you're seeing and you'd like to stick around for more repairs, electronics, tutorials, and tips, hit the subscribe button and all the YouTube buttons, like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like some additional content, check out the Patreon page. Patreons are running ahead with releases on YouTube. So if you'd like some additional content, head on over there and see what's happening. With that, I read all the comments on all the videos in between releases, and I will see everybody in the next video. Bye for now.